Hi, we're at Caesarea Philippi today. We're at the base of Mount Hermon, so if I tilt my camera up, you can see we're at a cliff. And this is the famous area where Jesus brought his disciples and then he asked them, "Who do people say that I am?" And they basically answered, "Well, they say you're one of the great prophets." And then he turned and said, "Well, who do you say that I am?" And that's when Peter gave his famous declaration, "You are the Messiah, the Son of God." Jesus says, it is not by your own you answered, but by the Spirit of God. And on this rock I shall build my church. And there's a whole debate on what Jesus meant by that. What is interesting about this area that we may miss is that this was an entirely pagan area. So all those caves up there that you can see are all basically to the god Pan. There's other nymphs up there. So this was an exceedingly wicked place that Jesus brought his disciples at least to this region. And Las Vegas may be a weak parallel of what the wickedness that went on here. And so basically we just heard a great teaching that we have to go against the values. So this area represents the values of the world and the wickedness, and we have to stand against that. Now, of course, if you know the rest of the story, Jesus then describes how he's going to have to go to Jerusalem and give up his life. And then Peter, who moments ago made this fantastic declaration, says, starts to rebuke Jesus, says, "No, that's not happening." And of course, Jesus has to, he uses the famous line, "Get behind me, Satan." So the teaching was excellent because it was, we often profess like Peter. We say, "You're the Messiah." But we live our lives like, oh, Jesus is one of the prophets. So when Jesus asks the question, "Who do men say that I am?" and they say, "Well, you're one of the great prophets," are we living like that? Or are we living like he's the Messiah? Because to live like he's the Messiah, we have to follow where he takes us. And that was the mistake Peter made. Peter wasn't, at least initially wasn't willing to follow, and the disciples a lot of times didn't understand. So that's the lesson here. We've got to be called to be apart from the world. And then the end of the story is, guess what? Christians are here today. The wicked city of Caesarea is not. So God's will be done, and we will be victorious. But until that day where the ultimate fulfillment comes, we just need to keep ourselves pure of this world. So the lessons from Caesarea Philippi.